Dan, I suppose it's great to see you again. I want to call you stranger because we haven't had a podcast episode in a while. But then again, I also saw you a couple days ago.
Yeah, we didn't get an episode out last week, but then it was like the next day, there you were, right in front of me. And then for the few days after that, the whole weekend.
We had pressure put on us to get these podcast episodes out. The calamity that I experienced at my wood yard just ruined everything. For our master plan, it just screwed everything up. There's just no way we could get it done.
Nope. And I think people knew with the scheduling of the International Firewood Expo and everything else going on, I think people weren't surprised that they went to their streaming service Wednesday morning and the wood hounds were not there.
Yeah. We are the world's largest firewood podcast, and we're on every major streaming service in the world.
Right. And we will be there now tomorrow for them on Wednesday.
All right. Yeah. We had a very fun, semi-interrupted weekend at the International Firewood Expo 2025, which took place on May 2nd and 3rd at the Trumbull County Fairgrounds in Northeast Ohio.
And it was one heck of an event. I gotta hand it to you, Joe. You really put a lot of effort into that, and it showed. Because it was awesome. I mean, the setup, it still had that feel of like that, that intimate feeling where you could get close to the machines, and yet it was still spread out, and the street going down through the fairgrounds with just as far as you could see down it, stuff was going on.
I wanted it to be a traditional trade show, but I also, you know how I operate, I wanted it to be different.
Yes.
And I had a lot of feedback afterwards, but it was positive. A lot of people, they said, I didn't know about this at first, but I liked it. It worked great. Talking about the flexible booth space, no assigned spots. And for the most part, it went well. But, the rain that came in on Saturday did kind of screw it up. But that's not what screwed up my master plan, because I had I had Optimus Prime plan in my head, which I know it would have been a home run. But what happened, the rain leading up to the event, because we've had, I think, one of the rainiest springs ever. Go figure. And the main parking lot for the Trumbull County Fairgrounds was out front, kind of like where Easton Made was out behind them. And it is a big, massive parking lot. But when it rains, people get stuck and it becomes a disaster. So we were not to park out there. We had to park on pavement. And everyone, if you didn't notice, parked everywhere and anywhere there was pavement. So the master plan, though, was the main gate was to be up on that upper end. And then that whole area would bend like a big loop, a big racetrack.
Yes.
The road that the kiln and the ornate fire pits was on, that was to be all machines, and then all the way around to the wood bank. And then, that little cut through where the Crown Royal outdoor wood furnaces was. That would have been awesome. That was prime.
Yes.
Yeah, but it just went out the window, so we were all on that, because that back road is all asphalt grindings, because that's where they put the Ferris wheel and all the heavy machines, all the heavy rides for the fairgrounds.
I see. Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. Hearing that and having been there, that would have been pretty sweet. But given the circumstances and having to change things around, I still got to say it was great, because you could walk up and down, and then you kind of had like that central location with the I don't know what that building was called.
The commercial building.
The commercial building, right, where they had excellent bathroom facilities inside of it.
They were nice, though, weren't they?
Yeah.
They're brand new. It's modern and clean. Yeah, it was great.
Right. And that building gave then the additional like inside space. So there was, a few vendors inside there, and yeah, it was just a great show.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So, okay, I guess I'm the organizer, but I'm still a fan and I still want it to be fun. And that's what I was hoping to get. And it was fun. We had enough logs. We had a good cross section of logs. We don't get big logs out here, but I kind of bought a few for the bigger machines to run. And yeah, I mean, it got a little weird there on Saturday, but it was never like a storm where you felt like, oh my gosh, where's the shelter? It was just rain. The thing with the woodhound community and firewooders is just, yeah, it's just another day,
Yep. Yeah,
The
and I
rain
think
didn't really disrupt as much.
and with the rain coming on Saturday, I think there was enough of the forecast ahead of time that everyone who came out Saturday just came prepared for rain. They brought an umbrella, they had rain jackets on, they had boots on. So it didn't really it'd be different if it would have been like nice and sunny in the morning and then all of a sudden, like you said, a big storm rolled through, and downpoured and wind and
Yeah,
lightning and all that stuff.
yeah. The Friday I thought was a big day. We had a big turnout. The weather still, even though it didn't rain a single drop on Friday, but there was the fear of um, major storms coming through, because like right after lunch it kind of thinned out, and that's where I think people were a little hesitant to come out. The morning though, we from gate A, which was we stayed on the pavement, where the grass parking lot out there, we got just overrun with cars and we had nowhere to put them. And that's why there was a moment where I'm running around like a dummy trying to figure out a plan on what we need to do. And the cars were starting to look like my wood yard after the flood. They were just everywhere and anywhere. And that's where we just hurry up and we made a very quick pivot. And we went and I found the guy from the fairgrounds because he's still the boss. He got the other gate open. He told us what we could do there. And it just took a few minutes, but we finally got everything figured out. And that did help us for Saturday. Because if we had nice weather Saturday, I think we would have gotten overrun with the crowds.
Yeah.
Just based upon what came on Friday, when the weather was forecasted to be good in the morning.
Yep. And just to clear up one thing for those of you listening that weren't there, those of you that were there will know what I'm talking about here. But you weren't really running around. You had a nice little
Yeah.
Bobcat side by side UTV that you were driving and riding
Oh
around
my
in.
gosh.
That you were looking pretty official, like you were like the grand marshal of the whole thing, or something. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Bobcat, yeah, Bobcat came through huge, and Lepo Rents and our good friend Marty, and he's been around the channel, and everyone knows and loves the guy. I
Yep.
think he's awesome. And he gave me this go kart because I don't know about you, Dan, but at the end of the day, my legs were just dead. I couldn't even stand up. But and that was even with the go kart. I call it a go kart. What do you call that thing?
Side by
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
Wow. So that was pretty fast. But then, I thought it could have been a little faster. Marty says, well, if you put the seatbelt on, it takes the governor off. So I put on the seatbelt and I was like, holy cow, this thing flies, man.
Yeah. You were
But I
zipping
still don't want to
around.
wear a seatbelt. I'm a bad boy here. Yeah, but my BFF, my best friend Frank, he was the best man in my wedding, and his girlfriend and her daughter ran the gates and and took the bunny, and that helped out bigly because of the TV ads that we had purchased.
Yep.
But they had, they're not firewooders, they're just friends of mine, but they were just blown away at how nice everyone was. Even with the rain, they said there was not a single cranky person that they ran into. And just because things got a little weird with the gates and stuff, she said that people were coming all the way from the other side to give her, the $5 entry fee, which she was just blown away by. But
Hmm.
that goes to the character of our community. Don't you agree?
Yes. I agree. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and it was like you mentioned Friday morning, I was surprised because I got there and I felt like, it was Friday, end of the week, work day, but all of a sudden you
Yeah.
looked up and down that road and there was people end to end going into booths, looking around at machines, and that's one of the things that I think was uh, I don't want to speak for them, but I think surprising to all of the vendors was it sounded like there was a lot of equipment, machines, and merch moved. Like people were buying.
That is what I understand. I tried to get to everyone, but I didn't get to everyone. But there was a consensus that the idea of a firewood only trade show in the spring is a is a great idea.
Yes. Yeah. And
The over, yeah, not just the overall, but the total consensus. I did not hear anyone say that this stinks. You know, that
right.
this will never work.
Just
I
Mother
was
Nature.
yeah, I was just glad that I don't know what you call this for you business minds, this proof of concept, your POC. I think we figured that out last year too, but the risk was moving it to the fairgrounds, but then I had just 13 manufacturers again.
Yeah.
We had over 60 here, and for just a few, almost the entire firewood industry that we know was there.
Yep. Yeah. I was. I mean, everywhere I looked, I saw someone carrying a chain locker. So that was a hot item that I think got a lot of attention. And then people were pulling machines out, picking machines up on Friday, Saturday. I mean, there was just it was busy.
Yeah, there's a few things that I figured out immediately that if we do this again next year, and I'm not saying that we are doing it again next year. You'll understand why here in a couple minutes when we talk about this. But the very first thing that I figured out was, we got to have a multiple day setup.
Yeah.
And this is just blind spots for me. I just thought, everyone would just show up on Thursday, but then, you're dealing with over the road truck drivers, DOT rules and this and that. So they were showing up as early as Wednesday. Well, heck, there was some that showed up on Tuesday when I'm dealing with my flood still. And then, so there was machines coming in, and then when machines can leave, some of the companies were Amish owned, so they don't work on Sunday. So that, we still had some machines left behind. And then we still had to get the cleanup on Sunday too. Which with all that water, I think it helped because wood floats. It was easy to get all that mess cleaned up. Yeah. So I learned a lot doing this, and I got very high self-esteem. I don't have a problem letting you know. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure this out. And I think we did a lot of stuff right. I think the general idea of a lower, I don't know, Dan, what's the right word here? A lower, not low organized, but like no low rules. It was a rule thin experience, like with booth space. I didn't have assigned booths. I didn't have assigned sizes. I think there was like the spirit of the event, and I think that all but a few of the um, exhibitors followed the spirit of it. I shouldn't even have said that. I just mean like when I said, take this space over here. I had a few that really took a lot of space.
they took it
Which,
well, but that sometimes that's what's needed, and I think that flexibility. I think is what the vendors appreciated. And to your point earlier about just being able to pivot when things change, I think that's you can dial down every little detail and micromanage everything and have a set
yeah,
plan. But then when one thing doesn't go right, it's a domino effect. And I think
yeah,
your approach was you kind of you have a
just make
general
it work.
concept, yeah, and then just make it work. Yep.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that because, even if we did have strict space, then that creates other problems too. I think, though, it showed that we were flexible enough, that we were nimble enough to make changes. What had
Yes.
happened, one of the manufacturers came very, very, very early, and they set their stuff down, which I felt was like a general area where they would fit. Okay. So then, Dan, like 59 other people start showing up, and I completely forgot about them, you know, and they kind of got squeezed. And then we moved, so when we moved over here, and then, then they're on two different sides, yeah, that kind of stuff. But it all worked out.
Right.
It all
It
worked
all worked
out.
out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, and I had a conversation with a very knowledgeable person who is deeply rooted into our industry and has a lot of experience with trade shows. And he pulled me aside near the end of the event, and I had a very valuable discussion with this guy, and I valued everything he told me. And his message was, in essence, and I'm not offended by anything. He had said, Joe, when I first showed up, I didn't know what we were getting into, and he kind of felt like it was going to be a Mickey Mouse operation. But he said, but no, it was quite the opposite. He goes, I see what your plan was. I see how you operate. I think this is awesome. And he wants to talk to me because he's got some advice for me here after I take a month's nap.
Well, on that subject, you mentioned earlier about next year. What are the thoughts 2 day, 3 days after the post week after it? The
Yeah.
initial thoughts, and next year, is it going to happen? Yes, no, maybe.
Okay. So keep me focused on this here because there's a lot of different elements. All right.
Okay.
And then I'm going to try and stay to your question, and we're going to answer this. Okay. The I had a couple of standards that will determine if I go forward with this. All right. And I'm not a bean counter either. So I'm not dealing with money here. All right. Well, let's just say this. I have to make this worth my time. You with me?
Right. You don't want
I
to
don't have,
lose money on it.
yeah, I don't want to, yeah,
Yeah.
this is not a nonprofit organization. I'm here to tell you, but I don't want to, yes, I'm going to make money. We haven't even counted it yet as I'm sitting here, talking with you. It's got to be worth my time. Okay. Let's just throw that out there. I'm a capitalist, and I think everyone can appreciate that. That is not the determining factor for me. And this gets back to, and you've known me long enough, it's got to be fun. If it isn't fun, I'm not going to do it, period. I don't care how much money it is. I had a job that once paid me a heck of a lot of money, but it wasn't fun and it wasn't worth it to me. I didn't want to live my life in a hotel away from my family. So it has to be fun. My first standard was how many, am I getting yelled at? And, am I making enemies? Because some people can be pretty cranky. You drive a trailer across country, living in
Oh.
hotels, then everything when you show up is wrong. So did I get yelled at? Here's the total number of times I got yelled at all week. You with me? 0.
Ooh.
I didn't get yelled at one single time at all. Not a single person had a gripe. No, no one wanted to complain to me about this or that. Not a single one. So that is very positive,
Yes.
very positive. That makes me lean towards, do I want to do this again? The other one is, I still got to meet with the fairgrounds because, we kind of tore some stuff up, but you know what? It's the fairgrounds for crying out loud. And I'm not
Yeah,
one of
and
these get
it's
off my
just
lawn
grass.
kind of people. Yeah,
It's just grass and dirt. I
yeah.
mean,
All you got to do is look out at my yard right now and know, where my priorities are. I am not one of these get off my lawn kind of people, but the fairgrounds is very nice, very fun to deal with. They just couldn't do enough for me, but I still got to talk to them,
right.
like an
Yep.
after action report because they may not want me back next year. I don't know. I kind of think they do, but so that's got to work. The other thing is my youngest daughter is going to be graduating from college next year, and I think it might be on the weekend of when the
Oh.
expo must or should be, because what I had learned, and I've talked to a lot of these manufacturers, that's why if you happen to notice, there weren't any chainsaw carvers there because, they always, they hate when they get stuck next to the chainsaw carvers. So I didn't have any chainsaw carvers. I guess everyone loves the sound of a chainsaw, but only for like 5 minutes. And then after that, it becomes a drag. Yeah. So I don't know. Okay, we got to go to the graduation, but you have in the spring there is the big show in Vermont slash Maine, and it leapfrogs Mother's Day every year. So this year it is the week after Mother's Day. So I took the week before Mother's Day. So next year, I'm believing that they are going to take the week before Mother's Day. So I would take the week after Mother's Day. Okay. So that week after Mother's Day is when my daughter graduates. Well,
Oh,
the week after that is Memorial Day, and no one's going to go to a trade show on Memorial Day weekend. Everyone wants to be home with their families. Well, the week
mm.
before is Richmond, Virginia, which is a big show that a lot of the firewood people go to. And then I don't think no one wants to go deeper into like the week after, like the end of May, the first weekend of June, because it's like the summer selling season, you know, maybe because there's really no trade shows. I don't know. I guess there's Boonville, but you know, there's kind of like that lull in
Yeah,
between
yep.
everything getting into the
June and
fall.
July is kind of off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I guess you can say life is getting in the way here. Well, could we still have it on the weekend when I'm going to be away at my daughter's graduation? Do I have a team? You know, can I stay and get things started and then leave? And I feel an obligation because people came to also to see me and I want to be there, you know?
Can they hold the graduation at the expo?
Not the school she goes to.
All right.
Yeah, that's the problem raising smart kids, you know, smarter than I ever was. I think I graduated from the Sally Struthers School of Correspondence. And then my daughter goes to a smart kids school. So, yeah, and they have like this big production over the weekend, you know, for graduation out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I don't even know if that's going to be the weekend though. I just got to figure all this out. I got to ask. I was wanting to do this during the expo when I had kind of like had everyone there, but you know, I was jumping, you know, I was
Yeah.
chasing my tail and you know, dealing with, you know, the 1,001 things that come up and hanging out with the Woodhound community.
There you go. Do you know
Yeah.
does does the fairgrounds have anything scheduled for the week after this coming weekend at the fairgrounds?
You mean like
An
this
event or
right now?
anything? Yeah.
You mean like right now?
Yes.
Well, if it's not involving swimming, I would hope not.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just wondering about. You know, like being able to repair the grass and the dirt. Like if they have time, if they had an event starting, say, Thursday of the week after, then I could see where they'd get a little nervous. But if they have time to, if they have
Yeah.
another week before any major events go on, shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's the
So
least of my problems right now. You know, because now everything's over. I got it cleaned up. I told him because we have my nephew is a farmer and he's got a gigantic roller. And they said if we can get him a roller, they would roll it and that would probably put everything back to normal.
yeah,
But you know, I got everything cleaned up over there, and I still got a business to run. You know, my deliveries are back at it. I got to mitigate this flood damage, which could be our next episode because
yeah, we got to
had a
talk
lot
about
of.
it.
I've had my eyes opened after this week. I'm here to tell you
Yeah, that
about
that's
running a
that was
business.
a big wow.
Yeah, it was a
Holy
big
moly.
mess. You know,
Yep.
and I'm serious. You know, this will be our next discussion. But you know, I got a couple flippant comments on the videos about quit your complaining. It's just firewood. You know what? No, it isn't. It might be to you, but to me, it's my livelihood,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I'm looking at losing 1/3 of everything I worked for. You know, so back off, bud. It's just
So
firewood for crying
so
out loud.
as far as
People, Dan, people drove from all over the country to come to the International Firewood Expo. And don't tell me it's just firewood. There was that guy drove all the
exactly.
way from Alaska. The one family flew from Alaska. The other guy drove from Alaska. We had people from Maine, Texas, Idaho, Florida, just about every state east of the Mississippi was there.
Right. And then the
Just
international representation.
Yeah, just firewood. There was a guy from the Netherlands with the one company. I didn't even know he was coming because I was advertising all the countries that were in attendance: Finland, Sweden, Norway, Germany, Slovenia. Um, what else? The
Canada.
UK, Canada,
Yep.
Wisconsin. That
Wisconsin.
Yeah, that bizarre country known as Wisconsin that Dan threw up his hands and says, "I'm here."
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a guy from the Netherlands. So, this is not just firewood. This is an industry, and this is a world class group of people.
there you go. Well said.
Yeah, yeah,
So, International Firewood Expo 2026. We will wait for more details as they develop. But
yeah.
I think everyone, well, at least everyone that I know is they're waiting for it. They're going to be waiting for it. They're going to be
I
hoping it comes through.
Yeah, I was told directly by a number of the exhibitors that they expect this to happen again and they will be there.
They will be back.
Yeah. One other thing, Dan.
Yes.
One other thing. There is okay. Let me word it this way. I'm talking to all of the firewood machine manufacturers, and I don't care if it is a hand tool or a firewood processor as big as a school bus. If you could not see the impact of social media marketing and the role of YouTube has on getting your machine seen by the world and developing an interest for people to buy it. If you couldn't see that at the International Firewood Expo, you gotta open your eyes, man. That was the role of social media in marketing for this type of industry is just off the charts. You've seen it in the way that, where was the traffic at? Whose booths had people standing at them?
Yep. I think that might be another episode. We got to dive into some of that because I was noticing a few things as well that were pretty interesting observations that I made.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
let's table
and
that.
it's and it ultimately comes down to like personalities and people driven interest, because who are the people that have developed personalities online?
Yes.
And I don't even mean the YouTube channels. I mean the manufacturers.
Yes. Yep.
There's just a handful of them, but it obviously has an impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed, it
Yeah.
does. All right, Joe. Well,
Yes, Dan.
I unfortunately I have to. I think you have to run too, and so do I. It's our lives are getting busy, 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 busy.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we were able
Well,
to get this week's episode of the Woodhounds
yeah,
out.
I am too. Dan, I also want to personally thank you for being a friend and being a positive role model in the firewood industry, in the woodhound community. Even though you're just a lowly hobbyist, you play a you play an important role. So thank you. The live stream that you did from the hotel was super cool, and you're accessible at the shows. You're not running around trying to avoid people. You're warm and welcome. Yeah.
Well, thanks. I will see if I can maintain that for another year, but it might be tough. I might have to. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it's great. It's always great seeing people and all that stuff. And I think it just again goes back to your point of like not only the people that come to these types of shows, but just the whole firewood community. Whether you're,
Yes.
if you are only in it to make firewood or watch content or create content, everyone, it's just one great big happy family.
Yeah. I agree. And it was neat seeing all the YouTube channels that showed up too.
Yes,
Everything about it was neat, Dan. That was fun.
it was.
A lot of fun. All right,
All right,
Dan. Let's
strike up the band.
strike up that band.
All right,
We should invite that band to the expo next year.
live.
Yeah. I know what song they could play.
Yeah, just all day long.
All day
and
long.
over.
Everyone will go crazy. They'll be asking for chainsaw carvers next time so they don't have to hear the band.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the number one firewood podcast in the world, the Woodhounds. And we'll see you, hopefully, right back here next Wednesday morning at 5 a.m.
Heck yeah. And please, if you haven't done so, think about giving us a 5-star rating on your streaming service. That would be a big help to us. So, Dan, let's tell everyone out there to get
Get to the to what? Get what?
I was thinking like get dry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Get your clothes hung out to dry.
And throw your boots and socks in the
Trash.
Oh boy. And have
A great day.